Hi, I'm Kathy Barker from Software Solutions. Have you ever wondered what Microsoft Lists is all about? Well, Microsoft Lists is an application that you can run through your app launcher via whatever web browser you prefer, or you can actually include lists in SharePoint online, or you can include lists in Teams. Basically, if you've got a list that you want to track, could be a list of incidents or accidents, or a list of assets, or a vehicle fleet, any type of list, even patients in a hospital, then you can use Microsoft Lists to help you create a list of things that need to be tracked and organised. You can manage this list on your own, or you can work on this list with others using Microsoft Lists. So I'm going to start Microsoft Lists through the app launcher. So I'm going to hit my app launcher, and in this collection of apps, I'm actually going to choose lists, and you see it here. If you can't see it, then explore all your apps and find lists. When I find lists, I'm then able to see any lists that I currently have, and you can see I've got a few. You're also able to create any lists that you'd like to using this button here. So I'm going to go plus new list. Now, when it comes to creating a new list, you can do it from blank, completely from scratch, from an existing list, from an Excel file, even from a comma-separated values file, a CSV file. But we've also got these templates. Maybe we want to track issues on site. Maybe we've got an employee onboarding process or an itinerary for certain events. Maybe we're managing assets or even a recruitment tracker. So there's a variety of templates in here we could use. Let's say we want to choose a issue tracker. So I'm going to click this one. There's a little bit of a sample of what the issue tracker looks like, and a summary on the right hand side basically says it tracks issues and brings them to closure in this list. Pre-populated choices and group views, etc. So I could go back if I wanted to change my mind, but I'm going to use this template. Now here I can actually change the name of it if I wish to. So I'm going to put site issues tracker. I can put a description here. I don't have to, but I can do. Any issues that arise on site during the progress of this project. I can choose a colour, maybe a purple, and I can also choose an icon, so maybe a light bulb. I can save it to my list, or I can save it to any of the groups that I have set up in my SharePoint or in my Office 365. So let's say I want to add it to the acquisitions program. If I then go create, it'll create my list for me. So here's my list. It's in the acquisitions program and it's called Site Issues Tracker. It welcomes me here and basically instructs me that if I click the new button, which is residing up here, I'm able to add a new item to my list. So let's give this a go. If I click new, I can add a single issue. Maybe we've got a broken step. And I can add a description. The lower step has broken in the main building. In the main building entrance. So as much detail about that issue as possible. I can give it a priority, so I think this is quite a high priority, or I could even choose critical. Let's go with critical. The status at the moment is it's a new issue, and here I can assign it to a certain person. So I start typing the person's name or email address. So I assign it to me. And here's Kathy. Now I can also say the date it was reported. So let's say it was reported today. And the issue resource, if there's a URL associated with the issue, you could put that there. You could also put some alternative text here as well. I can also add an image by clicking this option here, add an image. If I want to attach any documents to this particular issue, I can click the Add Attachments option. I've got a picture of a broken step here and open. I can add further documents as well, but one is all I've got. I can add further attachments just by clicking this option, but I'm just going to click Save. And here's my first issue. I've got a broken step, there's the description, the priority is critical, the status is new, it's assigned to me, the date were reported, and I can also see that there's a file associated with this. Besides adding a single item, let's say we want to add multiple items. That's when you'd click this button, Edit in Grid View. If I edit in Grid View, I can add a new item, and let's say that we've got an overflow pipe that's leaking. And let's say we've also got an issue. Now also I can put a description in here. A leak has developed on the north concrete or brick wall, and here for scaffolding there is a lack of scaffolding on the south wall. Now both of these are critical, so what I can do here is click and click again and choose critical. I can also put my mouse in the bottom right corner and fill that down, so I'm filling down the priority for both tasks. Both tasks are new, and also if I click on Kathy here, I'll assign Kathy to both tasks. The date reported, perhaps that's the same, so I fill that down as well. Now if I have any attachments that I want to attach to this particular, I can't put them into this particular cell here. The cell is saying it's read only. So if I want to attach some documentation to go with this particular issue, I could go to this More Actions button here, and I could go Edit, and from here I could then click Add Attachment, and if I've got a photo or some sort of documentation that goes with the overflow leaking pipe, I can open that and add that. I can then click Save, and then that attachment has been made to that particular task. I can untick that task. I can choose the next task, and I can choose to edit that and add an attachment, and perhaps I have some documentation to go with that as well. And close. So if I then exit the grid view, I'm back to my list. I may have to refresh my list if necessary, but I can see that I've now got 3 tasks and the details associated with those tasks. So if you want to add a single issue, just hit the New button, but if you want to add multiple issues and make that a little bit of a faster process, then click the Edit and Grid View button. To get out of the Edit and Grid View button, simply exit the grid view. At any time you want to edit a particular task, I'm going to click on Overflow Pipe, for example, and decide that I'm not going to deal with this. I'm going to assign it to somebody else. So I'll remove myself and I'll put in another Software Solutions person. And that person is now responsible. I can then go and close this option, and I'm back out of the details. And you can see I've got someone new assigned to that task. If I want to edit the scaffolding issue, perhaps the date it was reported is incorrect. It was actually reported a day earlier or on Friday. Then I can change the date and I can close the details. So it's very easy to edit an item that you've got showing. If you feel like you're not seeing the most up-to-date information, you may have to press F5 or the refresh option to actually get the items to update. If I wanted to delete an item, it would be simply a matter of choosing the circle in front of the particular item, and then through these More options here, I have the option to delete a particular task. I can also open it, I can edit it, and edit it in grid view just by choosing this little drop down here. To unselect the item, I can simply untick it, but if you've got more than one item selected, then sometimes it's handy to hit this little X here to clear the selection. If I decide that this list is not just about me, that I do actually want to share one or more tasks, then I can choose a particular task again by hitting this little tick, and then I have this option here which allows me to share. But I can also use this share option up here. But if I click the share button, I get the option then to say who I want to share it with. So I might choose another Software Solutions staff member. I'll just say, can you have a look at this? And come back to me with a revised priority. If I then click send, then they will be sent in email. Or I can take a copy of a link and then maybe put that link into some sort of document that that person is looking at. But I'm actually just going to hit send. and I've shared that with that particular person. I'll then untick the task or hit this X to unselect the task. Now the other thing you can do is comment on tasks. So maybe if I hit this little button here, I can add a comment. And then I can put a comment here and maybe involve somebody. So if I go at, then I get a list of people I can refer this to. So maybe I choose another software solutions person. And then my comment is it just the bottom step? And send that comment. So then I can see that there's been a comment left here, and people can then check what comments are in Microsoft lists, and particularly comments that have been directed to them. Now looking around the screen, there's a few other things I want to show you. For example, this list, if I go to all items, I can change it from a list to a compact list, which allows me to see more on my screen and compacts more vertically than it does horizontally. I've also got the option of seeing a gallery, and that's a different approach to this particular list. But I'm going to go back to the compact list and choose that particular option. So different ways that you can view this particular Microsoft list. You can also filter the list. At the moment I'm seeing all items, but I may just want to see items that have been grouped by a priority, and so it will group by all the critical ones versus the non-critical. Now all three of mine are critical, so let me just edit one of these tasks. If I go into scaffolding, for instance, and I've had a response back from that comment I sent earlier, and maybe this is just a normal priority, then I'll close this option, and now when it groups by critical, and there's 2 items in the critical group, and it's then grouped by normal, and there's 1 item in the normal group. So you can choose to see all items, or you can ask to see all your items grouped by critical or priority. You can also ask to see your items grouped by status, and so these are the new ones. Again, if I click on a particular task, I may want to choose the status option and say, this is actually now in progress. And so if I then close that, I can see when I'm grouped by status that the scaffolding issue is in progress, and I've since had word back that the overflow pipe is completed. So if I click on overflow pipe, I can click on status and change that to completed. So there's a number of statuses that include blocked, in progress, duplicated, by design, won't fix, and new and completed. So if I close that, I'm now seeing my tasks grouped by their status. So see your task grouped by priority, grouped by status, or grouped by the person they're assigned to. So when I go assigned to, I can see there's 2 things assigned to me and 1 thing assigned to my software solutions person. I also have this little chevron which allows me to collapse and expand any particular group of interest, and so these are handy ways of viewing. If I then go back to all items, I'm seeing all the items in my list. Now what you can do is also create your own views above and beyond those that are listed here. There's 1, 2, 3, and this one being a 4th view. If I want to create a new view, I could create a new view using this option here, or I could customize the current view and then save it as a view. Let's say I just want to adjust the width of this column and the width of this column, and let's just say I want to add a column. I'm going to add a column, and I can choose whether it's a text column, a choice column, a date column, what sort of column I'm after. And there's a variety of options in here which are really helpful. What I might just do is say that this is the supervisor's column. I'll go choice and next. Give it a name, supervisor, and then a description, who is responsible, and then choose the type of choices I'd like to make, which is choice. Choice 1 would be Kathy, choice 2 would be Bob, choice 3 would be Matt, and choice 4 would be Lisa. So these are the supervisors we have available. Now I can change the colours if I want. If I don't want Lisa to be red because that's rather startling, then I could choose purple. So add as many choices as you want. You can add choices manually. The default one, let's just say it defaults to Kathy. And there's even more options down here. So you can choose whether it's a drop down or radio buttons. You can allow multiple selections. Maybe I want that. You could also, and then just go save. So I've created a new column called Supervisor. Now, how do I use my new column? If I then choose a particular task, so broken step, and I look down the bottom here, I can see Supervisor. And if I click it, then I can choose who I want to add. So let's say I'm going to put Lisa and Bob both in charge of that, and then close that. And so now I'm seeing 2 supervisors assigned to that particular task. So you can completely customize the columns that you see here, which makes it really powerful. Let's say I want to be able to add a job number to any particular task. So I'll add column. I'll choose just a text column because it's got alpha characters in it. I'll choose next. I'll give it the name job number and then associated job number. It's a single line of text. The default value, I won't do that, but I've got more options as well. I can limit the number of characters, so the job number at most is only ever 8 characters. I require that the column contains information, so I can make it a required field, so I'll go yes. Enforce unique values, I could do that as well, and I'm just going to go save. And so the idea now is it's saying to me, this is required information, you haven't filled it in. If I then go to broken step and I look down below here, I can see job number and I have to enter a value. So if this was job 115466, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and then if I close that, I can see the job number's been entered. Now let's just click on this one and let's go down and choose the job number and 11545422 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Close that, and that's that one dealt with, and I'll leave this one as is. So you can actually say what job it's associated to. So think about whether you want to add certain columns. Now, what if I want to remove columns? Here's images as well. Let me just go into here and let me just scroll down, add an image. Let's say I actually put those photos in here. So the broken step, for example, and okay that, and eventually it will save it. And there's my broken step. And if I close it, I can see there's one image there of my broken step. I'm going to go into this one. I'm going to go into images. I'm going to find my overflow pipe. So if I ask them to take a photo, they can do that. And I can add it to the task. There's my overflow pipe and then my scaffolding image as well. And then close that. So we've got an understanding of these. Issue source, that was that URL. I don't think we actually need this, so I'm going to go to column settings and I'm actually going to hide that column, show hide columns. I don't need to see issue source, it's just not relevant to me. So you can untick things and tick things that are relevant to you. I might decide if I apply that I do need to see issue logged by, I do need to see that. And it should have said that it was logged by me. So I'm going to go into Edit and Grid View, Issue Logged By, type Kathy, choose me, and then I'm going to fill me all the way down because those 3 issues were logged by me. And then exit the grid view. This is giving me an error because it says you haven't put the job number in. So let me just quickly fill that in because it says this is required. So this was job number 11544411 0. So now I've filled in the job number. I can now actually exit the grid view, and there's my changes. So do think about adding columns, resizing columns, getting rid of columns you don't need. You can even choose to sort by columns. So if I want to sort them by date reported, I can hit this drop down here and I can go from older to newer or newer to older. I'm going to leave it on older to newer. You can also do things like if I go to issue here, I might decide that I want to add a total, and that total is to count the number of issues that I've got listed, and it says there's 3. You can also do things such as, let's have a look at the other things here. So sort A to Z, Z to A. You can filter by a particular issue or group by an issue. Column settings, we saw how we could actually show or hide a column. We've also looked at add a column, but we did it via this option. But we can also pin this to the filters pane, narrow the column, widen the column, move to the right. We've narrowed it and we've widened it. If I wanted to move it, I just drag priority and put it to the left. And now priority is my second column. So you can easily just drag columns and move them. Other column settings you can do is format this column, and that would allow you to add conditional formatting, which we'll look at shortly. So I'm just going to close that for now. But let's say I want to save this as a view. So let's go to this drop down here and save view as. And I'm going to call it total items view. And just save that. And it is a public view, so other people beside myself can actually see it as well. And so now I've got total items view as part of my collection of view. And where conditional formatting is really helpful is you can actually format certain tasks in your list depending on a certain condition. So if something is critical, I really want it to stand out. So I could go to the priority column, for example, go to column settings and say I want to format this column. Now this is what they call JSON, so I'm going to just switch to format view. And here is a list option, but I can choose a gallery option. And there's my gallery option, which looks a little better now that I've actually got pictures about the various issues that we're encountering. But if I go back to seeing the list style and apply conditional format, I could choose alternating rows, and you can see that's just alternated, so it's easier for your reader to read across. That's a certain thing you could choose. But I'm going to actually go conditional formatting here, and I want to add a rule. And so my rule is going to be choose a column, and my column would be priority, and choose a comparison, and that would be is equal to, and then choose a type. Now if it's equal to critical, then I choose a sample, and that's this little option here, and I really want them to stand out as quite red, and I'll save that. So that is conditional formatting, where you're saying, look, I want to format a certain row based on a certain condition. And then I could go back to here and I could actually set the current view as the default, or save the view as and repeat the name and just save. So it becomes part of that view. Other things that you may notice also is that if you do want to filter a list, you can just hit this drop down here, for example, and say filter by, and then choose a certain person, for example, and apply that filter. So any of these lists that you have can be filtered by one or more of these columns. If I want to clear that filter, I can just go into here and actually choose to clear all and close that. But I've also got a filter button here, which allows me to open up the filters pane and apply one or more filters to my list. So very strong filtering, sorting, formatting options for your list. Now these lists are like SharePoint lists, and so you've got a lot of the SharePoint features that you can apply to this list. To get into the list settings, let's just hit the settings button in the top right corner here, and let's go into list settings. There's also a recycle bin if you've deleted something from your list and you wish to get it back. But let's go into list settings. The settings, you're able to see that your settings are grouped into general settings, permissions and management, communications, and even columns. In the general settings, for example, you can change the name of the list, the description, and the navigation by using this option here and simply making those changes. And I'll go cancel. You can also control versioning. You can also do advanced settings in these options here. So versioning, for example, is whether you require content to be approved before it's submitted to the list. You can say yes or no. You can also create a version for each time an item is edited, and you can also see other settings relating to versioning, but I'm just going to go cancel. Advanced settings takes you into things such as allow management of content types. Yes or no. I'd probably say no for other people. You can also allow people to read items. Attachments are enabled, but it could be disabled. Whether you allow comments or not, and whether you can create a new folder, and whether you allow items to appear in search results, etc. So a lot of the settings in here are very much SharePoint list settings, and they can apply to your Microsoft lists. I'll cancel that. The other thing you've got is the ability, even in that in here is the rating settings, for example. So people that are working on this list, you can say whether they can rate this list yes or no. And they can rate it either by using stars or by using likes. So I might say, let's go for likes and okay. And so we'll see that later where they can actually rate your list by the number of likes. Other useful settings you may want to have a look at in here. The other thing is whether you want to delete this list. This is possible through this option here, and permissions for this list are controlled in here. When it comes to columns, for example, we can see that there are a number of columns: title, description, priority, status, that we could click on and we could delete, or we could modify if we no longer wanted that column or we wanted to change the way that that column behaved. So you can edit a lot of your columns also in the list settings. You can also manage your views. There's the view that we created earlier, the total items view. It's the default view. You could change that. And this is default mobile view, and these views are able to see it on a mobile device as well. Get out of the settings and back to your actual list. We could just choose on the right-hand side, the left-hand side here, that we wanted to go back to our site issues tracker. Or we could go to our app launcher and say we wanted to go to lists, and here's all of our lists, and there now is our site issues tracker. So I can go into this particular list if I want to continue managing this list. If you wanted to work with lists through Microsoft Teams, let me bring Teams into the picture. Here it is here. Here's my portfolio, for example, and maybe I want to add a list option in here. So I'll click the plus at the top, and in my collection of apps, I see lists. So I'm going to click this particular program. And from here, I'm able to set up a list. I can click the Save button. And when I click the Save button, I can choose to add an existing list if I wanted to add the one I created earlier, or I could create a new list. And so from here, you can see you can create your list from scratch, or again by using any of the templates that Microsoft provides. You may even have some lists from your organization. Check that option out. But I hope you've enjoyed lists. Lists are a really great way to organize a list of vehicles, a list of tasks, a list of incidents, anything that you need a list of. And these templates sort of give you some sort of heads up as to what types of lists you can create. But any list that you want to manage and organize yourself, or any list that you then want to share with others and work on together. I hope you've enjoyed.